Steve, in your estimation, how long is this going to last before we get to something that you could call normal?
Well, I think that we're going to hopefully before Memorial Day start to see some of the framework agreements, I guess they're calling them, with the big economies like Japan, Korea, maybe a few others, may become the pace setters for where the other deals might be flowing. As those begin to trickle in, I'd like to believe that Xi Jinping will find a phone and be able to call and say, I'd like to make a deal with you, Mr. President. The Chinese in the past, they would do that. It wouldn't mean a deal is coming soon. It wouldn't mean that everything's going to work out great, but it would get into kind of a predictable back and forth of communication that calms markets, buys time. I think that with China, we're in for a multi-year adjustment. I don't expect there to be kind of a new normal by the end of this year, or maybe even by the end of the term of Trump's administration this time. I think we're on a glide path to negotiating a new normal there. But a lot of these other things, I'd like to think we could get through in the first half of the year with close partners that have proven responsible, and several others in the second half of the year, so that you've got a 2026 that is on a bit more of a predictable trajectory.
So, do you anticipate that these tariffs that currently exist, between the U.S. and China, you think that could continue through the rest of this year and into next?
Some of them, yes. So, like the first 20% that are linked specifically to fentanyl precursors getting exported out of China, until there's real measurable evidence of that flow going down, which China could turn off like a spigot. That's one of the benefits of being an authoritarian government. They know who's doing what. They know where it's being banked. They could turn that off. As soon as they do that, those 20% could be reduced. Maybe they go to 10, maybe they go to 5, maybe they go to 0. But if that flow does not measurably go down, they're staying in place, is at least what I hear. The others, if they get into the range of talks, they'll go from the sort of freak out stratosphere back down to just being high. And I think that with other major partners, especially good allies that we've had free trade agreements with in the past, I think a lot of those tariff negotiations will go back close to 0. We'll maybe bank a few wins on investment and co-manufacturing of critical things. But I would expect with the non-China economies, we're getting down to low to not very consequential rates by mid-year to the fall at latest.
Okay, well, I certainly take your point that part of this, in terms of what happens with China, is dependent upon the U.S. being able to negotiate these deals and get these agreements in place with economies like India, like China and others, South Korea. And so we have to assume that will be the case. There's a lot of impetus for that. Although, what do you make of the Chinese regime? In a sense, it's almost, a threat, where they've reached out to some of our allies and said, watch out, be careful. We do not want you to be making these trade deals.
Yeah, well, it's just the kind of love that the Communist Party is so good at. They come and give you a nice hug, comrade, and sure hate for something bad to happen to your family. So just let's just smile for the cameras, and we're just a nice neighbor coming to say hello. But yeah, don't make a deal with the Americans, and better make sure it all works really well for us. But the U.S. is actually putting pressure on some of our partners and allies that are responsible for transshipment, and basically trying to make clear China's giving you that burden. It's their trade deficit that they're giving you to carry, and now you're getting grief from the United States about imbalanced trade. But it's China's unbalanced trade. So talk with us, work with us. We understand what's going on, and as long as you talk and work with us, we'll try to make sure the pressure goes where it belongs, but we're not going to pretend it's not happening. And when it comes to this, I think, there's a little bit of the criticism of Europe about seeking economic advantage from the threat you want us to pay to protect you from. So in Southeast Asia, they don't want to choose. But guess what? You're just going to have to choose. Do you want access to the big American market? And do you want Uncle Sam to balance against this clearly aggressive neighbor? And if you don't think it's aggressive, again, I always go back to, look at them picking a fight with the Philippines. Who does that? And so if they're willing to pick a fight with the Philippines, Vietnam, you can't feel comfortable.
Yeah, Xi Jinping is he's like the Tony Soprano of the diplomatic
Yeah.
world. Yeah, he's coming in and saying the envelope's a little light to all our allies. But look,
Yeah.
again, I think if we talk about, look, Target, Walmart, others, some of the big boxes have put out word that we expect that some of the shelves are going to look a little bare. Prices may go up, and so I guess kind of going back to an earlier question, you do wonder, because part of this is a political, right, a domestic politics issue, right? So,
Right.
and they're certainly looking at that, consumer confidence and sort of attitude towards the existing administration. And so the question, always is, well, how much pain would the U.S. population be able to bear? And the White House is saying there will be some pain.
Yeah, I think it somewhat comes down to communications. I mean, when we were living through the crazy pandemic days, there were grocery stores with empty shelves, and it was kind of a question how it was communicated. But there was a tolerance for a time for people to go through that. I don't think they want it, but if it's communicated that, look, China's been eating our lunch, there's all kinds of problems with this supply chain. They are withholding it by being intransigent and confrontational with us, and we're going to backfill it somehow. I mean, I think people have to know, why is this happening, and how do we get from point A to point B where this is back online? And if that can't be answered, then yeah, there's going to be some unease and uncertainty, and it will come from the grassroots up. I mean, that's the main street the administration says it's going to bat for in all this. I think they mean it, but really going to have to be communicating this every step along the way. But I always live and learn. There are things on those shelves that are not made in China, that people, when storms come, want to go hoard. And when those shelves are empty, it's not because of something in China. It's because people got crazy and went and took it all. And so we'll have,
who would have guessed, dude?
Storm comes and there's no toilet paper. That's not made in China.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to point out the whole TP brouhaha, right? And the hunt for toilet paper became paramount. Now, I think it's apples and oranges, right? I take your point about people put up with it, to some degree, particularly early stages of the pandemic.
Right.
But there was a sense of, I don't want to compare it exactly, but sort of a 9/11, we're all in this together kind of thing. Right? I don't know that they'll feel that way.
You're right about that.
With a trade war. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.